Greetings. It's time to look at another module for the Tektronix TM5000 series power frames. And what we got today is a DC5009 Universal Counter. Well, it's basically a frequency counter, and that's just what it does. It counts frequencies. There's not that many ways to count frequency or to do a frequency display. I mean, the other way is to use a spectrum analyzer, which basically performs a Fourier transform on an incoming analog signal, and then it shows you the amplitude of all the harmonics, and then you put your cursor on the largest harmonic with the largest amplitude, and the scope will tell you what the frequency there is. So that's one way to measure frequency. But a digital frequency counter is a lot easier to use and is a lot cheaper than a spectrum analyzer. I actually read the manual for this a bit, the specs specifically, and it's a bit confusing because the introductory paragraph says it'll go up to 135 megahertz. But when you look at the electrical specs table, it says the maximum is 80 megahertz. So I'm not exactly sure what the spec is on this, but the point is moot because the frequency, the function generator I'm going to use to test this with only goes up to 15 megahertz. So no worries there. And for my purposes, even the megahertz region is too high. I will usually use it on audio frequencies, and at the high end, using it to check clock frequencies on CPU boards. So if it works properly in that region, I think we got a good unit. Now the manual also tells you to give this at least 10 minutes of warm-up time. So let us get this guy to warm up. It does have a GPIB interface, so you can remotely talk to it and log frequencies and do whatever. And the buttons here are 18 is its GPIB ID. We have a test button that lights up everything. And then, as you can see, the gate basically tells you when it starts and stops counting pulses. And you can turn that off and back on again. And other than that, you can set the slope of the incoming signal. It does have two inputs. The first input is used to just measure frequency, but you can put two frequency sources into this. It'll perform some math functions as how much they deviate from each other, how much out of phase the signals are, and all that good kind of stuff. These two knobs let you adjust the amplitude, lower and higher amplitude limits for the incoming signal. Or you can press the center button in and it'll go into automatic mode. So you don't really have to do any adjustments. It kind of figures it out for you. So yeah, let it warm up a bit, and then we'll see what it does. It should be warmed up by now, and here's what we're going to use to test it with: an in-stick function generator over here, and a leader counter. So what we're going to do is, this is going to tell us whether we're looking at the frequency that's displayed on the function generator, or whether the frequency is actually, the true frequency running through these wires is what this displays. So let's see. I don't remember what the function generator is set up for, but yeah, let's power it up. And alright, so the function generator is set to 150 kilohertz. You can't probably see that, but there's a little annunciator here that tells us the frequency range. This one you can see clearly, and on this one the kilohertz annunciator is on. And what we can see pretty quickly, I mean, this gate LED basically tells you when it's starting and stopping to count the frequency. It's just there's just, on a simple basis, there's a counter in there, a digital counter, and when the measuring period is over, it does some math on the count it gets and sends it to the display. And that's a bit of an oversimplification. It's got an internal 10 megahertz reference clock, but it runs, you know, so how can it measure anything higher than 10 megahertz? But it's got a PLL in there, and most likely what happens in most of these things, the incoming frequency is divided to a point where the 10 megahertz internal clock has sufficient resolution to go up to the rated maximum that this can count. But yeah, looking at the setup, it's not super stable, but when you compare it to this, but this only has 3 decimals and this has 6 decimals. And if you look at the first 3 decimals, yeah, this one is kind of stable, but that's because this one's running at a lower gate frequency. So let's see if we go to a lower gate frequency. And then we may have to adjust that. But we can see this one's not that accurate, but these two basically agree. You can punch this into a calculator, but it's like 0.0 something accuracy change or difference between the two. And we basically choose the 150K because that's what the function generator was set to last time. So let's bump it up to the max the function generator can give us and see how we're doing. So far, so good. Okay, how about we bump it up to 500 kilohertz. So we want to go to frequency 500 kilohertz. And yeah, this one's really slow. Let's see. Doesn't like it when I go too low on the gate here. See if we can adjust it. I guess I should read the manual a little more, but if you go back to the previous setting, it gets unstable, but it is still within range. But when I go to an even slower gate, it doesn't like to go there, the gate. Well, I guess it does work. Yeah. So the gate frequency is almost the same, and you can kind of tell by looking at the gate LED when this blinks, and the gate annunciator here. So it's kind of sampling at the same frequency right now. And again, this one's kind of lying, but they're almost dead on. And again, so that's good. So now let's make the jump to a megahertz. So we go to 1 megahertz. And picks that up. No problem. I mean, it's a common ill with frequency counters. If you got them set to like 1 megahertz, the display is going to look kind of more unstable than any other number, because if it jumps below that, the whole number changes, and then once it hits 1 megahertz, everything's going to go to 0, and it's going to look very unstable, but it really isn't. And this one isn't even going to run. There you go. Well, yeah, we're running at 1 megahertz. So now, next, 5. And yeah, it takes this guy a little while to catch up, but again, it's fine over there. Next, we'll jump to 10 megahertz. And we can see that the leader is... No, it isn't confused. It's basically saying it's like 9,999 kilohertz. Let's see if I change the counter on here. And again, the gate frequency kind of matches. This one's running a little slower. But you know, you go to a fast gate frequency and you'll see the instability on the last few decimals on here. But basically, if we cover the last 3 up, you know, yeah, we got 10 megahertz. Come on. No, of course it won't go there. There you go. And again, that should be, for our purposes, that should be enough. So now let's bump it to maximum. And maximum is 15. And we can see that both of these take a little time to actually go to the proper readout. But again, for an early 80s model, the frequency is pretty good. Now let's see, does this let me go above 15 megahertz? Well, the manual says no, but let's go to 16. Nope, it capped it. So it won't, I mean, no big feat. There's a microprocessor in here and it just says if entered value greater than 15 times 10 to the 6th, clamp it at 15. So there you got it on the high end. And now let's look at the low end. We started out with 150K, so let's go to 50 kilohertz. And this one's kind of dancing around. This one stopped gating, so we're gonna have to change. So, boom. Oh, and this one recovered. But It is working right, but it's updating slowly. So that we can, at the lower frequency, if we put this on auto, it kind of, this actually figures out its own gate frequency. So this is gated faster than that one. So if we slow down the gate on this, well, the next one is like 10 seconds, so that's kind of useless. We'll leave it on 1 second. But yeah, we can see things are matching, and it's a lot closer to what the function generator says. So we're at 50 kilohertz. So let's go down to 2 kilohertz. And we're still tracking well. So we're 2 kilohertz, so we are in the audible range right now. And then when we go really low, let's do a concert A pitch, which is 440 hertz. This one's still counting. And this one, let's see, if we go to 0.1. Yeah, well, so see this one, yeah. Those are the only two usable gate times. And yeah, it's telling us it's 0.440 kilohertz, which is 440 hertz. And this one's telling us we are at 440 hertz. So that works too. Let's see how much lower we can go. Let's do 100 hertz. Yep, can do 100. And of course everybody's favorite, 60 hertz. And it's still tracking. That's where all the noise bars you see on CRTs come from. When the primary filter caps go bad and the DC voltage has an AC component of 60 hertz riding on top, and that drives the CRT crazy. Alright, I mean, for grins, let's go lower. Let's see, well, 50 hertz, can it do that? Yep. 30 hertz. She's still humming along. Okay, how much lower is this gonna still measure? Oh, I went back to, I didn't realize this, I went to kilohertz. When did I mess up? Okay, let's go back to 60 hertz. So I must have gone below the lower limit of this and it automatically switched it. So let's go back, let's see if I do 30. Yeah, 30 still is correct. It's doing kilohertz. Well, 0.03 kilohertz, and then this one says 30 hertz. And then 20. Oh yeah, 20 still works. I may have hit the wrong button. Okay. Right. It is doing 10. I must have hit the wrong. When I entered the number, I probably hit the kilohertz button instead of the hertz button. So, yeah, it measures down of 10. Five. Still good. Hertz. Well, you don't really need a frequency counter for that. You can probably do it by just counting, but it's just still interesting to see how low they go. And then 1 hertz. Yes. Okay, fine. 0 hertz. Okay, function generator won't let me do 1. So let's see, can I do 0.5 hertz? Yes, it lets me do that. And it's still measuring it. So theoretically it should measure 0.1 also. No cigar. Oh. Well, kinda. Oh, this is, yeah, it's saying 0.14 hertz, but it's updating real slowly. And it won't let me go change the gate time. So, and it becomes kind of inaccurate. That switches it to megahertz. So he's kind of picking it up. But he can't show us. And this now went bad, so yeah, 0.1 doesn't really work. But hey, 0.2? Doesn't like that either. I guess 0.5. This one caught the 0.5. But this one doesn't like it. Well, it can't show 0.5. So yeah, we are off, of course, but that's a pretty low frequency. Okay, I'm sure you're dying to hear what this sounds like, and another question is, why was 440 chosen as the concert A pitch? And the reason for that is that the frequency is an integer. And the A on the even-tempered scale, which is what most Western music uses, only A's have are even multiples or of the 440. All the other notes, so if we want to go one semitone up from an A, well, let's turn it on. I hooked it up to a crappy guitar amp, but that's basically what 440 sounds like. Octaves, which are 12 notes, are apart by a factor of 2, so 2 times 440, man, this thing is annoying, is 880. Sorry. Now, I don't know if you noticed how this went above 880. It took it a while to come down to 880. And that wasn't the frequency counter's fault. The function generator is being a little bit kooky. It takes it a while. It overshoots the destination frequency, and then it slowly comes back to it. And I didn't realize that. I thought it took this a while to latch onto the frequency, but hearing it, I could hear it go up in pitch and then slowly come down to a final pitch. So I think that's another attest to this working properly. Now if we go one octave below 440 at 220, see if it does the same thing. Well, not if I enter it wrong. 2, 2, 0. And see, it does it again. It overshot it. It almost hit what was it, 223, 224, and then it slowly came down. And this tracked it perfectly. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. And finally you may ask, so what about all the other notes? Aren't those integer frequencies too? And no, they're not, and just won't go into it long. But the next note up from 440, 440 is an A. See again, 447. And then the pitch drops and it stabilizes on the final frequency. So I didn't know that this function generator did that. And just for grins, the next note from A is an A sharp, and I had to use my calculator for it, and the frequency is 466.16. Now let's watch this closely. 466.16, and it's going to overshoot it. It's not going to do anything. Oh, because I have to press the frequency button and do 466.16. It overshoots to 474, and then it comes down to 466.16. Yes, I know this is annoying. I'm going to turn it down. But if I hadn't done the listening test, I wouldn't have known that this guy is overshoots pretty badly when you enter a new frequency, and it takes it a few seconds to actually generate the right thing. But yes, as I said before, it shows us that this guy is accurately measuring the frequency that's fed to it. We're not going to get into putting in two frequencies and doing differences and sums and phase delays and stuff like that, because this video is getting long and I won't be using those functions a whole lot when using this module. But there's one noteworthy function I found, and it's called what is it called? It is called time manual, and that's just a fancy expression for saying it's in stopwatch mode. So it's a stopwatch that has a resolution of 100 milliseconds. And you press this button and it starts counting. And then you press it again and it stops. And you can either continue or reset it. So if all else fails, you can use this as the world's most expensive stopwatch with a very limited resolution. Well, that wraps it up. This guy is functional. We didn't do a deep dive on it, but it's functional enough to measure frequency. The most interesting part was what this helped us see that my function generator overshoots pretty badly when you're changing frequency on it, and it takes it a few seconds to settle down. But anyway, thanks for watching. To all the good stuff, including leaving a comment and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.